Hello guys, so welcome back to my channel. So today I just finished watching the United States of America, the vice presidential debate ahead of um their upcoming election that is just about 27 days from now. This debate actually took place just now, and this is about 3 o'clock in Nigeria, and I can't really tell what's the time right now in the US, but right now the bit just finished and I couldn't really keep quiet this time around because um I'm not gonna be talking about America. America is really not much of our business in Nigeria. Although the president in America has a lot of influence around the world. But I just want to tie this around my country, Nigeria. Um First of all, I just wanted to say something. I actually don't know what we're doing with a multi-party system in Nigeria. I don't know if it's because of how it's originates with her, but then come to think about it, in the US, they are also as much more indigenous than us. They even have a lot of immigrants coming to the country, who are also influencing policies in their country, and these people still find a way to tie around the political system around two-party system, the Republicans and the Democrat. And apart from so many other things that I saw during the debate, the decorum which I can sense as a result of a two-party system was actually something to write home about. And this has been consistent apart from people's some people think the last debate between President Donald Trump and the aspiring president Joe Biden was not properly coordinated. But that's left for people's opinion. But when you come to our country, Nigeria, you see a lot of issues coming up even before the election date. And these are part of the reasons why we spend so much money on electoral processes. Processes like, trying to manage a whole lot of party. Last election, 2019 election, we had close to about 90, if not more than, different political parties, vying for um, a position. And that is going to tell how divided or how dispersed the voters are going to be, because each of these persons coming up for the post of office of the president, for example, they have family relatives, they have friends, they have loyal members, and these people, reasons lesser than patriotism, they would be rooting for who they feel is their own person. Unquote. They'll be waiting for the person, and this is gonna be so much of a tax to handle. Talk about the debate, for example. Just imagine 90 people coming and up on a debate. Look at how dispersed it is. Now, just look at the last presidential election. First of all, what channels did they disenfranchised some major parties, although not one of the top, like you have PDP, APC. AAC, for example, was disenfranchised from the last, if I may use the word disenfranchised, because when you're sure I wasn't allowed to to be a participant of that debate. You know, there were a lot of court processes and all that, but He still couldn't make it. It was all about protests here and there, trying to know if the decisions of China to exclude him, and as a HAC, the duly registered party behind it from the presidential debate. But still, they couldn't get anything substantial, and that went on. So you can see the trail of aggrieved um, followers of those people. First of all, the followers of Shorel feel there is nothing really about the election in terms of if it's gonna come out free and fair, because prior to it they already seen some form of I'm gonna call it incongruity. Some things are not just coming up right, and these people wouldn't want to believe in the electoral processes. So that said, let's look at how the vice presidential debate of the greatest country in how went. First of all, I got into the debate at the middle of the way, but quite early enough, and some of the things that were part of the question asked this aspirant, these people running for office as a vice president, was about the prevalent issue of the Black Lives Matters. They asked him, especially they asked that's the vice president of Donald Trump, about why is why Donald Trump hasn't been able to denounce white supremacy. Now you're gonna be seeing what Donald this guy talk about it. That's Pence. You're gonna see what he talk about as his response to this question. They also talk about police brutality, you know, and they also have a stance. The Republicans having a stance that they didn't want to be in a position of choosing between the people and the police, because these are two strong constituents of the US polity, of any country's polity. So why Democrats are like saying that no, we have to disband the police, we have to defund the police, we have to reform the police, and all that. So one of the questions was that was profound, and I felt like America is this really America that we heard about was in the House spends about if Trump was gonna concede defeat, assuming he lost the election, upcoming election. So um you're also gonna see his reaction to this. And one of the last thing I'm gonna mention that they talked about was about the numerous arguments. It was actually someone that asked the question, you know, for, prior to the media chat, I think, because it was recorded. Now, this person was like asking, how is it that over the past 4 years, 3 years, each time she come to the media, she says things like the people against the people against the government against the Republican against the Democrat against. It has been a long 12 years of argument, argument. So you're also gonna see what Pence talk about and its response, and also the one of Kamala Harris, a response to this. So overall, it is an interesting debate, but I don't want you to take your eye of our country, Nigeria. We have a lot to learn from this leading democracy in America. We can see how people, express themselves freely as a human being. So you can see Kamala Harris, she expressed herself as a human being. We want to see a Nigeria that works in such a manner where the aspirants are not deterred. They are not forced to make unsubstantiated or uncultured promises that they cannot keep, that they are not able to keep while in office just because they want to subvert or they want to deceive the people just to get power by all means. And this is stemmed from a series of intimidation, if I could call it so. So we want to learn some one or two things from this leading democracy. And I still ask the question, why do we still need a multi-party system in Nigeria? Thank you. So do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Click like and subscribe to this channel for more content.
Employment, record investments in education, the fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you very much.
How about your response?
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who was personally prosecuted, everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists. And it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a pattern of Donald Trump's. He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed, and on the other side there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs, and Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. In America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together,
Senator Harris.
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we
Senator
all
Harris,
have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Back on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President.
We fought for educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our members.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll do it for full.
Thank you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election itself.
He attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holds.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
I would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of votes that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign. And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as vice president? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record, where we rebuild our military. We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. We have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Kemp, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. It's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. The American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. but we always come together and are always there for one another
Thank you.
in times of need. And we've especially learned that
Thank you,
through
Mr.
the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brooklyn?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle, and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
Well, that's Susan Page there, the moderator for the night. You've been watching and witnessing Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, make their case in the vice presidential